Hello all of you out there, and in today's video I'm going to share with you the most OP Ark creatures. In at number 10 is the Kronosaurus, and there is no lie that this thing is pretty much just an upgraded Giga with immense and insane power, and the fact that this thing doesn't have a rage meter as well, and the fact that this is a somewhat easier 10 than the Giga, this is definitely one of Ark's most OP creatures. This deals so much damage and can really pack a punch, especially in maps like Extinction when you're going to be using this thing to kill a load of titans, and this thing is obviously going to be extremely useful in that example. But also, this thing is great for just general combat across the map as well. It can traverse maps with speed, unlike the Giga, as it has a decent stamina stat, although you shouldn't do what I did here and just pump all the levels. That's just there for an example. Don't actually do that in a real world scenario, but it can travel across the map with great speed, and it's not going to run out of stamina like a Giga. And like I said, this thing doesn't have a rage meter, which makes this a lot safer to use, and it has a blood rage ability where at its fullest it will deal even more damage than the Giga can, making this an even more OP carnivore, which I really think that you should tame at some point. And you can go check out my guide on my channel, which I have, if you want to know how to tame one. In at number 9 is the Krono, and this creature is really strong for me in terms of an Ark creature. The Krono, now with ASA, is ridiculously easy to tame, and to be honest is one of the easiest tames in the game, if not the easiest, along with a few others which use the same method. Essentially, you can just find a baby Krono, or if that baby Krono has a parent attached to it at the time, if it hasn't been killed already, then you'll have to kill said parent, and then you have that baby Krono as your own tame. And on single player, they will raise pretty quickly. On official though, I have been told they do not raise in any quick manner. But most people are playing ASA single player, and barely anyone at the moment really is playing ASA on official. So most people will have quick raising times, and the Krono deals an immense amount of damage. Its saddle is really easy to craft, and you can find it in a lot of drops in ASA, and on top of that it deals the bleed ability as well, which some better Ark carnivores out there do not deal, and that is an ability which is so useful to have in a carnivore. And yes, the aloe has it as well, and if you're an aloe lover and not a Krono lover, you can always put the aloe in this spot instead of the Krono. But I vastly prefer the Krono over the aloe, so that is why the Krono is on this list, considering how easy it is to tame in ASA, but it's still ridiculously easy to tame with ASE. This is one of the most OP carnivores, and you should really utilize it if you haven't already, or get an aloe if you're that kind of person instead. Next up, we have the Vonaur, and to me, this is such an unusual Ark creature, as in no other creature in Ark is like this, and obviously it isn't available in ASA at the moment, as the island is the only map, hence why obviously the B-roll here in this video is switching between two games at the moment, but I haven't finalized all of my ASA B-roll yet, as, yeah, stuff has been pretty busy at the moment. But apart from that, I should stop talking about my personal life and talk about what makes this thing OP. In terms of the Vonaur, this can shoot all kinds of spines, which actually, sadly, do not scale when you level up its melee damage. But you can always level up that stamina stat, and then you will deal even more. You won't deal more damage. Sorry, you'll be able to shoot more over a longer period of time. Yep, it's very late at the moment. But, you know, still keeping up with the daily uploads. But again, the leveling up that stamina will give you more firing abilities, as in you can fire more, and obviously you can just do the general hack and slash, and also you can shake the spines off of you as well. This creature just deals an insane amount of damage, and its ability is really cool. It's really effective, it works really well, and this ability is strangely creepy when I look at it like this. In at number 7 is the Ther, and this creature is one which is highly respected and is very easy to tame with the assistance of a net gun, but a very simple trap will get it done pretty easily. And sadly on ASA it isn't quite as useful, as the terrain is very very finicky at the moment, but in ASE this is an extremely useful carnivore, more so than in ASA, kind of, although ASE, sorry, has more maps, which obviously means it's somewhat more useful in ASA, but I would say it's more useful in ASE as the terrain is much less harsh, and some terrain the Thyla simply can't traverse in ASA as it is too geometrically complex. I don't know why Wildcard went for that. It might just be a bit of a geometry bug as well, as a lot of these stones are just floating in the air, and you'll see a lot of that if you have ASA or if you're just watching through this B-roll. Yes, that isn't just an issue with my game, everyone's game at the moment has the floating rocks, as for some reason they don't mesh in this terrain properly. But in terms of the Thyla's use and why this is OP, obviously it is a great travel mount, which is really hard to find, especially one like this, as obviously it will deal immense amount of damage on top of that, which some travel mounts really don't have. The Galley is an example there, and obviously it has that bleed ability, if I haven't said that already, and you'll see it in use with a Kentro later. And albeit the Thyla is a little oversized, which is why this Kentro looks so tiny, they're actually not too tiny when you look at them from a player perspective, but Thylas are for some reason absolutely massive in ASA, and in ASE for that matter. The model was pretty much the same, I don't think they've changed it. Sadly, the Thyla isn't allowed in bosses, but it is still an extremely OP travel mount, and it deals insane amounts of damage, and the fact that it can climb so many things and jump off of that and pounce onto creatures in the air is so cool, and it is extremely overpowered. Next up, we have the Shadowman, and I can essentially summarize this creature as the Thyla, but better. Albeit it doesn't have the bleed ability, this has pack buffs, the hydration buff, and a lot more mobility than the Thyla. Albeit it can't climb walls and vertical surfaces, it will just be able to simply jump over them, and this thing can jump to absolutely insane heights, some of which you will see in a moment. And also it does deal more damage than the Thyla, and it is a much nicer form factor, being a little bit smaller so it can fit into caves if you want to use it for caving. And obviously, again, this isn't going to be great for ASA at the moment, as obviously it isn't in ASA, but in ASE this is one of the most OP creatures, as it is so densely packed with abilities, and it is a great swimmer as well. But it makes sense because its codename in the game is Lionfish Lion. Its only real downside is its taming method, which can be an absolute drag at the worst, and some of the most infuriating things that you'll have to do. But if it goes well for you, you're one of the lucky ones. In at number 5 is the RG, and the RG is just that creature which I think every Ark player should tame at some point. It is just so essential for so many things, especially on ASA at the moment, as the island is the only map available. And if you haven't got yourself an RG already, and if you're in the position to get an RG, if you're not yet, that's fine, wait until you can. But if you are in the position to get an RG, get an RG, and if you still aren't in the position to get an RG, get one as soon as you can. These things, firstly, for a start, can pick up a wealth of creatures, which is extremely useful for obviously taming, but in the case of this creature especially, it can pick up the Anki, which is great for harvesting metal, and the fact that this has weight reduction on metal, and insane weight in general, and insane stamina too. This is one of the best creatures, if not the best creature out there, for transporting metal off mountains, and also paired with the Anki, the best creature for getting all of that metal as well. Obviously it's not going to be doing the gathering, but it will be doing all of the transporting. And you could say the Rhino Ganatha maybe is better for that job, but that creature is insanely hard to tame compared to the RG. Also, the RG saddle acts as a portable smithy too, which is a really nice ability to have, and if it eats a dead body, it has a really nice regen ability, one which you really can't miss. And if you've got into a fight at some point and you need to heal quickly, just kill a very simple, easy to kill Ark creature, and your health will absolutely skyrocket. Speaking of the Rhinogonatha, and also the Rhinogonatha was in the background of the last bit of B-roll there, the next creature on the list is the Rhinogonatha. And the reason why this thing is OP is mainly just considering how much damage this thing deals, and also how many creatures this can pick up, and the size of creatures it can pick up. The Rhinogonatha can pick up Rexes, and the fact that it is an ASA at the moment is kind of insane, and to some people's not great opinion, as many people out there right now are saying the Rhinogonatha shouldn't be an ASA this early, and tech shouldn't be an ASA this early, and largely I would agree with that as well, as we kind of want a bit of a more primitive Ark experience before all of the other maps come. But obviously Tech and the Rhinogonatha is on the island on ASE, so it kind of makes sense on ASA, obviously why those creatures are there. And I'm not necessarily angry about it, but I know some other people definitely are not as happy as I am with the state of ASA, not just because of the performance, but also because of the lack of primitive survival in that early stages of the game, like Wildcard kind of hinted at, and that was kind of what we were promised until obviously other maps were released, and then it would kind of turn into ASE gradually, but obviously with the superior graphics and supposedly superior performance. Also, in terms of the Rhinogonatha's taming method, which definitely is a long drag, it is actually largely pretty easy if you do take your time with it. It will just take a lot of time, and obviously you'll need all of the right resources. But if you want to tame the Rhinogonatha in ASE or an ASA for that matter, you can always check out my guide, and you'll find there how to easily tame the Rhinogonatha, and a lot of the b-roll which you've been seeing in this video is from that exact video, so you can kind of get a hint of how to tame it, and you should know how to tame it from this b-roll. But if you want a more in-depth guided way to tame this thing, then you can always go check out my video, and you just need to search up Rhinogonatha taming. Just search it on my channel and you'll find it right there. In at number 3 is the Deinonychus, and this creature is insane for one main reason, and that is why it is so OP. The fact that this thing is allowed in bosses, which the Thyla isn't, and the Thyla would be significantly higher on the list if it was allowed into bosses. But also, in my opinion, the Deinonychus just is a better creature, as it can do everything the Thyla can, but just better in kind of every way. Firstly, it will deal that bleed ability again, but it can also grapple onto larger creatures, which the Thyla obviously can't, and the fact that this is allowed in bosses is absolutely insane, as you can shred through them. Unlike the Thyla as well, the Deinonychus also has the pack buff, which is insanely great to have. Sadly, it doesn't have the hydration buff like the Shadowman, but that wouldn't really make sense with this creature, and it does make sense with the Shadowman. Also, if you have a pack of these things, again, all of that damage is just going to scale so much, and you can beast through pretty much any boss, apart from the Moda, obviously, as you're not going to take these things into the Moda with absolute ease. And also, these things don't take full damage as well, which is just a nice little comfort to have. And they have great agility as well. You can see how fast the Deinonychus is. This is on default speed as well, and also they can parkour up walls, and obviously any kind of vertical surface like the Thyla can. Obviously they can't pounce onto creatures in midair, but with a creature with this wealth of other abilities, you don't really miss that, and I don't really tend to use that ability on the Thyla anyway. So if you have the choice between a Thyla and Deinonychus, go Deinonychus every single time. In at number 2 is the Crystal Wyvern, and some people may be popping off at me here, as you're like, how is this thing better than the Deinonychus? And in my opinion, this isn't a better creature than the Deinonychus, but it is more OP considering how much easier this thing is to tame than the Deinonychus. Albeit the Deinonychus tame isn't the most difficult in the world, this is one of the most, if not, I would actually say, probably one of the easiest tames in Ark. Maybe even the easiest tame, apart from maybe a couple which are just so easy you don't even really have to count them as tames. They're just a thing which just happens instantly. And the only real barrier for this thing, which is why it wasn't in the number 1 spot, is because there is a level 65 barrier. But you were literally getting a Wyvern with a passive tame with just some crystal, and it is so easy to do. There's just a spot where you can stand on its back and then just passive feed it crystal, and you can just sit there chilling back, watching a movie or watching whatever, and then just pressing this button, which is E on a keyboard. I can't remember what the bindings are for consoles, and then boom, you have yourself a Wyvern. And obviously, because it's a Wyvern, no saddle is required. And if you get the Blood Crystal Wyvern, you have one of the most OP creatures in the game. And the only real downside, again, with them not having a saddle, is that they don't have armor. And another kind of downside to these things is obviously that level 65, but you can easily do a note run which will get you up to level 65 really quickly, and then you can have one of the best Ark Tames so quickly. And in at number 1 is the Desmodus. And really, did you expect any other creature to be in the number 1 spot? This creature is just packed with so many abilities, you can't leave it off of the list. Firstly, it has the Sanguine Elixir, which is an absolute cheat for tames, as it essentially does a third of the taming process for you. Also, in terms of taming, it isn't the easiest in the world, but a lower level won't give you as much anguish as a Shadowman tame. And once you've got one, the second is going to be much easier. It kind of works with the Rock Drake and the Bloodstalker. The next one is always going to be much easier. And also, the Desmodus has an ability which no other creature has. This can farm blood bags, which when before this thing came out, wasn't possible. And also, like a Tapijara, it can hook on to walls as well, all the way to upside down surfaces too. Just make sure you don't dismount, as I'm sure some people have accidentally pressed that button when they meant to grapple onto a wall. Easy mistake to make, I know. And they also have the glide ability. This creature is just so OP. But anyway, that is the end of today's video, and I really hope that you enjoyed this one. And as always, comment down below what is your top 10 most OP Ark Dinos, and I will see you all later.